Hello once again, you're watching Vote 22. We're live on UTV on this Friday evening analysing the results of the Assembly election so far. On the screen, let's take a look now at the state of the parties. This is the percentage vote and this is the first preferences that were given to the parties today. And as you can see, the lion's share of those first preference votes have gone to Sinn Féin at 29% and 21.3% there going to the DUP. So, Tracy, what does that tell you about the first preference votes?
Well, what it very clearly shows is that the Sinn Féin called to people to come out and vote for them, and the electorate heard them. And I do agree with Suzanne that what has happened here is that every time the DUP either refused to say that they were going to take the Deputy First Minister post or said that they weren't prepared to go back into government, it has energised the nationalist vote. Now, we've made quite a big deal about the Ulster Unionist Party and how they haven't perhaps managed their vote. But if you actually look at those figures, it's the SDLP who have actually come out worse here. They have gone down by nearly 3%. I think a real difficulty for Colm Eastwood is if Nicola Mallon then goes out. Well, I mean, she's his right-hand woman in Stormont. When he's over in Westminster, she's the one who looks after, takes care of things in Stormont. That could be a real loss for him. So it's not only that their vote has gone down, but also that they're losing high-profile people.
You were talking there about the SDLP tactics. Ken, let's talk about the Ulster Unionist tactics here, because the cake is small, but yet they were fielding two candidates in a constituency or constituencies where there really is only one quota. Yeah,
well, certainly in two of the constituencies, the vote management was terrible. Having said that, I suppose there's some comfort from the performance of Robin Swan in North Antrim. He did very, very well, topping the poll there. And with the bounce of the ball, probably they're going to pick up a few more seats by tomorrow morning, whenever the count finishes. But once again, they've been squeezed by the Alliance Party, and they've been like the SDLP. The last time the SDLP had more MLAs in the Ulster Union, it looks to me as if that's going to be reversed this time.
Ken, what must London and Dublin be thinking about and talking about tonight?
Well, I think there'll be a few eyebrows raised, particularly in the Irish government, because Sinn Féin's performance is perhaps not going to be welcome in government buildings, I would have thought, but they'll have to face up to that. The second thing in London, and this is the key perhaps to the future, is what's going to happen about the protocol. I think the announcement of Brandon Lewis on Wednesday evening took me by surprise. When I watched the programme, did he actually say that? What was going on there? And we know that in the past 3 years that the DUP should have learned that to trust Boris Johnson was taking something of a risk. And I would imagine Dublin and London will be talking a lot next week about the way forward.
In the interim, of course, there are individual results, Suzanne Breen, that have bucked the trend. I mean, for example, Alex Easton winning as an independent unionist in North Down.
That's not surprising. He's a very hard constituency worker.
Not DUP anymore.
He's not DUP, and I think the party made a big mistake when it loses somebody like Alex Easton. I mean, he is the most inoffensive and meekest MLA that they had in their ranks, and that they managed to anger him and unsettle him so much. Some of the things that criticisms he's made at the party, they're very, very hard-hitting. I agree with Tracy that there are the biggest questions here for the SDLP. I mean, I was out on the campaign trail following them as a journalist in several constituencies, and they fought a really good campaign. Colm Eastwood, in my eyes, clearly won both the UTV debate and the BBC debate, but yet they are still not cutting through. And the loss of Nicola Mallon.
Where did it go wrong?
I think it's just basically the greening of the nationalist community in this election. The SDLP message just doesn't resonate, and I talked to plenty of people who normally wouldn't vote Sinn Féin, but they said that they were going to do that because the DUP had got so much under their skin in this election. So I think the SDLP were up against it, and that is the hard thing for them, that they fought a pretty good campaign. They didn't lack energy, they didn't lack enthusiasm in candidates like Matt O'Toole and Elsie Traynor. They're very strong. They're not yesterday's men and women, and yet the results aren't coming through.
Yeah, I also felt that they suffer from the fact that Colm Eastwood and Claire Hanna weren't candidates. I think Claire Hanna would have made a difference in South Belfast because she's such a high profile.
And Tracy, Jeffrey Donaldson has said that as things stand, he will not be nominating for the position of, well, anything in the executive, and certainly not Deputy First Minister.
Well, he hasn't been as specific as that. I mean, he is sort of dancing on the head of a pin. What he is saying is that he will respect the outcome of the election. Well, the outcome of the election very clearly is that they're going to be in second position. So if he is going to respect the outcome of the election, logic dictates that the DUP will have to take the Deputy First Minister's role. He has also not said that he's coming back from Westminster. In the interview earlier today, asked him a number of times, he didn't give an answer. So could it be that the decision will be made by the DUP leader that he will stay in London, given the fact that the protocol is still an issue, co-opt somebody else into his seat? At the moment, if you like, there is a bit of time because the DUP have said, well, we're not going into government unless the protocol is sorted out. Nobody is expecting that to be sorted out anytime soon. And so all these questions are sort of hanging in the air without answers, and they all follow a certain logic.
He also has to keep his party together. You know, they did unite for the election, but there are various tensions. I mean, we already had Edwin Pootsnight saying ITV that the Good Friday Agreement's dead in the water if the protocol's not removed. Holding that together is going to be quite difficult, so you'll have to be very careful internally within the DUP what he does.
What, I wonder, will the conversations be like at Stormont next week? There isn't time. But, you know, very, very quickly, people are going to have to be talking, if not to each other, certainly at each other.
Well, I think they're going to be very fractious, because with a vote like that, Sinn Féin's certainly going to assert itself and make its voice heard. I agree with Ken in terms of the DUP being disunited. I think that there will now be questions asked of Jeffrey Donaldson. He performed very strongly, it has to be said, himself in Lagan Valley, but you know, Edwin Poots is back in there. There were maybe concerns about him moving to South Belfast. He might be in danger. He's not. I think he'll be putting forward his views in a very forthright manner, and questions for Doug Beattie here, because he really needed, he's going after the Alliance vote, the Liberal Unionist vote, and he needed to win in urban areas, especially in Belfast. That should be fertile ground, and yet the party's two candidates, Stephen McCarthy in South Belfast and Julianne Corr in North Belfast, didn't come close. Now in Foyle, I think Ryan McCready, who fought a very energetic and creative campaign, he might still be in the mix in terms of transfers for that last seat. But really there will be people internally in the Ulster Unionists, more conservative, traditional people, who will now be making their voices heard.
Will conversations within unionism not be a bit like a wake at this point? Certainly whenever we're looking at the beginning of next week, and will not be helped by the fact that there's no guarantee that there will be anything about the protocol in the Queen's speech on Tuesday.
Yes, it will be a bit like intruding in private grief, I think, as far as unionism is concerned. Look, as I understand it, there will be some reference to the government protecting the Good Friday Belfast Agreement, which is a very, very bland statement. It says something and it says nothing. It's up for interpretation. Maybe not what the DUP had been hoping for, certainly not what they had been told to expect. But what it does mean is it gives the government that little bit of wriggle room, in fact quite a lot of wriggle room, to decide, well, do we take unilateral action on the protocol? But I have to say, looking at those results, all those parties that have done quite well are the parties that weren't anti-protocol. The TUV, yes, their vote has gone up, but they haven't made gains as far as seats are concerned. So, you know, why would the government walk itself into a row, potentially a trade war in the middle of the Ukrainian war at this particular moment?
So we're 20 seconds away from ending the programme almost, Ken. What do you see us talking about in the week to come? Or certainly the politicians.
Well, I think all the focus will be on Jeffrey Donaldson, won't it? Is he going to take the position or not? And if we're going into negotiation, how long are those negotiations going to take? They're up to 6 months. But really, we've got a crisis with the cost of living. We've got various other problems out there. And I think that the public will be saying, get on with it.
Suzanne and Tracy, thank you all very much indeed. Well, that's it for now, but stay with UTV. We're back again at 9 o'clock tonight for further analysis on what's proven to be an historic Assembly election. We'll be joined by Anna Mercer, Deirdre Heenan and Peter Sherlow, as well as the journalist and commentator Brian Rowan. And of course,